Yesusim ka Farisawiyan na ka Sedukawiyan Arsho Tetenek Ekuna Teteveku Alacho. And he said to them in 16 and 6, he said, take heed and beware. Beware of the leaven of the Orthodox. Beware of the leaven of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. This is a warning. Perhaps you didn't get the warning before, but you need to get the warning now. What is leaven? What is the leaven of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and why we use the inspiration of Getachin Jesus Christus as in the Mateos Wengel, as the authority for this particular this particular warning? Beware of the leaven of the Ethiopian Orthodox. But which Orthodox are we talking about? Because the church right now is split. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church is split. Did you know that? You understand? So who's who? And more importantly, what is the truth? Alright, so here's the scripture right here from Matthew 16 and 6. Yesusim ka Farisawiyan na ka Sedukawiyan Arsho Tetenek Ekuna Teteveku Alacho. And he said to them in 16 and 6, he said, take heed and beware, watch and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. And I say to you, beware of the leaven of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and of Christianities, the Gentile Christianities, in the very same way. But the first thing we need to do is to understand exactly what is leaven. You understand? And we need to go to this example of Getachin Jesus in Matthew 16 verses 6 to 12, because in 6 to 12, Geta Jesus Adonai Yehoshua, he interprets the symbol of leaven. What is leaven? Now leaven or leaven is yeast. You know what yeast is? I don't know if you know about cooking, but those who know about cooking, you understand what yeast is. And it's very important to just do a little Google on yeast, just to understand what yeast is, how yeast operates, why yeast is used, and why yeast is not used. Now we need to understand this very carefully, because Geta Jesus, it says in verse 6, it says, then Jesus said to them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. And now the Dekamezamor, the Talmudim, the disciples, they reasoned among themselves, saying, it is because we have no bread. So now understand how the disciples interpreted or misinterpreted, and what the true interpretation. This particular example right here is very crucial for our faith, to understand Geta Jesus and not to get caught up in so-called clergy interpretation, men and people, man-made interpretation, but in the master, especially if you are seeking to walk the way of the Geta, to walk the way of the Adonai, to walk the way of Christ in spirit and in truth. So we need to understand this. Now we need to pay careful attention to this, as well as all of the Wengel and special teachings of Geta Jesus, because the disciples, they reasoned among themselves. And many times we will reason among ourselves. You understand that we will not consult with the word of the master. We need to consult with the word of Adonai. So they said it is because we have no bread. Verse 8, which when Yehoshua perceived, he said to them, and this is here where the red letter Bible is very good, because now you can see the words, the teaching of Geta Jesus. You understand, it says, O ye of little faith, why reason ye among yourselves? Because ye have brought no bread. Why are you reasoning this is because you have brought no bread, that I'm telling you to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees? He goes on to say in verse 9, do ye not yet understand? Don't you have any master while? Don't you understand? Don't you comprehend? Neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000 and how many baskets she took up? Don't you understand what this is really about? You understand? So divine mind over matter, even religious so-called matter. It says, neither the 7 loaves of the 4,000 and how many baskets ye took up. Now understand, it wasn't just 1 loaf, but he multiplied the loaves. Verse 11, How is it that ye do not understand? How is it that you don't comprehend? You have no comprehension that I spake it not to you concerning bread. How don't you understand? Bread is the symbol, but it's not really about bread like physical, worldly, earthly bread. That ye should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Now verse 12 says, then understood, then they comprehended, you understand? Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine, the so-called teaching of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. And in like manner, we say to you, beware of the leaven of the Ethiopian Orthodox, and beware of the leaven of the Catholic, and beware of the leaven of the Protestant. But you know the first thing we need to do? We need to better comprehend what is leaven according to the scripture sense, according to the metaf sense, according to Geta Jesus Adonenu Yehoshua HaMoshiach sense. And here we now gonna have to go to an earlier portion. Let's touch on Matthew chapter 13. You understand, when this idea of leaven is put in a different context, and according to Schofield Study Bible and Reference Bible, there's a footnote which is very, very interesting, and we're going to try to go through it at a lively pace, but hopefully you will study this for yourself. You understand, because the warning has been given. So here in chapter 13 is actually where the Mezamorinet, the Mezamoritinet teaching actually begins, in other words, where discipleship actually officially begins. And what we mean by that, it is here at this particular area of the gospel ministry that the disciples are beginning to get the real mysteries of the Mengishta Semayat. So it's very important to understand this. The 13 is almost like high school. So they've already gone through the basics. You understand the basics from chapter 1 to chapter 12, and now here's the high school teaching. Here's the deeper, more operational teaching. You understand the real sense of the gospel and the gospel ministry, the good news of the King of Kings and his Christ. Now here's the Aratenya Mishtir, or the fourth mystery, which is the mystery of the Ursho. And we don't have time right now to go through exactly what a mystery is according to the Metaf Kedus. However, we will say this, that a mystery is a confidential, it's a secret, you understand, and one confides confidentials and secrets or hidden truths in those who are entrusted. You understand, there's a whole context to this. It's a very important study for the Deka Mezamorit to study. But here at verse 33, Matthew chapter 13, verse 33, another parable, another misale spake he, Geta Jesus, to them, the Deka Mezamorit. He said that the Mengishta Samayat, or the kingdom of the Shemayim, the heaven, is like to leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened, until the entirety of it was leavened. And it says, all these things spake Jesus to the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not to them. So first he used the misale, and then to the Deka Mezamorit he explained the mishtir, the confidential, the hidden, previously hidden truth of it. Verse 35, it says, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the Nabi, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, in misale woch, I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. Now it says this was spoken, it says this was spoken by the prophet, and we find that in Psalm 78 verse 2. Psalm 78 verse 2. So it's the prophet King David, or Dawid. Dawid is the one who he's referring to right here. So now here, let's get into the interpretation of the parable, the misale of the Ursha. Because if we don't understand this in chapter 13, then you're not going to fully understand why Geta Jesus, he warned them to take heed and to beware of the Ursho of the Pharisaean and the Sadducean, or the Sadducees, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And we're going to learn also who are the Pharisees, who are the Sadducees. You understand what distinguishing marks they have, and how we can tell who's who within this end time Gentile Christianity. You understand? And we can also beware. You understand? We can take heed and beware as well. Now, the interpretation of the parable of leaven, which begins in verse 33 of Mateos Wengel, Yesusim ka Pharisawiyan na ka Sedukawiyan arsho tetenek ekuna tetebeku alacha. And he said to them in 16:6, he said, take heed and beware. Beware of the leaven of the Orthodox. Beware of the leaven of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.